Welcome,
A good,
Nyambura.
eve- a good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 8 p.m. East African time. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. We welcome you to another interesting talk here at the Kajiado We Want CBO. And as we start, I will be hosting or moderating this session for today, another exciting, interesting topic that is very dear and close to us, and especially as a country, because I know we've all had mental health. We were previously celebrating or commemorating the mental health month in the month of May. And as we just come to a close of the month, I know we are doing it in June, but we are not very far off. We will be looking at mental health issues today. And before we get into that, kindly allow me to thank the Creator of all things in heaven and earth for giving us another wonderful day to be together, to join in together, to engage, to network, to learn together. And we ask that as He guides us in this engagement, that we will be more engaged, we will participate more to change our community, to change our county, and make it better for the lives, for our lives, for the lives of our children, and for the generations to come. And that whatever we are going to learn today, whatever knowledge that will be impacted to us, will help us better our lives moving forward. And we pray, believing and trusting. Amen. So welcome again, ladies and gentlemen, to our session today, the 21st day of June. We host weekly engagement talks on topics that are community-based or topics that would affect our communities on a day-to-day life. And the Kajiado We Want is a community-based organization that focuses on the community development in the county of Kajiado, the great county of Kajiado, in matters to do with infrastructure, road, street lighting, and drainage. The CBO also focuses on water and sanitation, health and drug abuse, education and literacy matters, environment, waste management, land use and climate change. The CBO also looks at matters to do with trade, industry, and job creation. Of course, advocacy for the youth, children, and women is a core matter that the CBO aims to look at, and security and community policing for our community are the key areas that the Kajiado We Want CBO focuses on. And we hope to do this or to achieve this by creating awareness through covering topical issues tackled by expert guests that we host every Wednesday on our social media handles. So we stream these live on Facebook and on our YouTube platforms, where we have a guest speaker talking on either of the 8 thematic areas that I have just mentioned. And we also aim to achieve development by lobbying the government through public participation, writing of memorandums, petitioning, and as a last resort, where we are not able to achieve much through public participation and petitioning, then we would resort to picketing to achieve the development of our community. We also aim to create partnerships with individuals, associations, entities, and non-governmental organizations. Kindly note that the Kajiado We Want CBO is not political and does not support any political leader against any other, so that we are an independent, non-political outfit, and we do not support any person's political ambitions, but work with all leaders, both elected and non-elected, to bring change to our county. The key values that we require of members who are in the CBO or who are looking to join the CBO are volunteerism, because we need people to tackle the various topics that I mentioned, to assist in moderation, to assist in creating awareness. We also look for commitment, because as we are changing our community, we keep saying that we need to be united and for all of us to participate and commit to the cause. We also are looking for integrity, because we cannot achieve much without integrity. So members within the CBO are people who would then portray or have integrity as a virtue. And lastly, we seek or we support respect for each other, because remember, we are growing our community and we cannot grow that if we are not listening, respecting, and supporting each other. We draw our membership from all the sub-counties of Kajiado County, and we are free to engage us through our social media handles, our Facebook page, the Kajiado We Want, to participate in any matters that would bring development to the county. And if you'd want to become a member, kindly feel free to reach out. I will be sharing some contact details that you could use to just engage us if you'd like to become a member, if you'd like to be a guest expert speaker for any of our sessions. And ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, as I have mentioned that today we are having a very interesting topic here at the Kajiado We Want platform. To have in the sorry. And as I have mentioned, if I could just look at a bit of statistics, currently in Kenya, about 25% of our people are seeking help or are seeking medical assistance for mental health issues. And we have been seeing cases on media on what the effects of mental health are within our community. And it's therefore important for us to be still and learn how to harness stillness for our mental health. And today's speaker or today's expert will be teaching us or taking us through how we can do that. And our speaker for today, as we address why mastering our mental health is an important skill in the 21st century, we have Ernest Okeyo. Ernest, karibu sana. Ernest is a communication expert with 13 years experience in the media industry. Ernest has been a series director of major campaigns. We have all participated or we got to enjoy the Coke Studio Africa. Ernest has been one of the directors of the said show, and Ernest has also participated in the Safaricom Blaze BYOB, which is a youth mentorship program that was also mentoring and getting to nurture talents by our young people. Currently, he's the founder of the RHX Media consultancy, which is a consultancy that aims at teaching mental health and addressing stress issues. And today, Ernest will be teaching us how meditation can help us and how being still can assist in addressing mental health issues. So, Ernest, I know I'm very eager to learn or to just know how, and I'm sure our viewers are also eager to know what exactly is stillness when we talk about being still. I know the Holy Book for us Christians tell us to be still and know He is Lord. So is that what you're going to talk to us about today, or what exactly is stillness? Karibu sana Bwana Ernest Okeyo.
Thank you, Nyambura. It's a good question. What stillness is? Stillness can be anything you want it to be, really. But the way I'm using it in this talk, stillness is stopping for a moment so you can think about your life. So that's what we're going to talk about, is how to stop life in this very, very quick century we are in. Things move so quickly, information passes so quickly, we are overworked, we are overinformed, and we are understaffed, you know. So stillness is finding a way in this whole crazy hurricane that we call life to find a middle ground and be able to attack life with a clear mind.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ernest, for that. Karibu sana to the Kajiado we want. We are looking forward to learning from you then how we can be still and master our mental health as an important skill in the 21st century. So karibu sana.
Thank you.
The floor is yours, Ernest.
All right. I hope you can see my presentation.
Yes, we can.
Right. So I'll just start by saying I'm very thankful to the Kajiado We Want community for giving me this opportunity to talk about something I'm very passionate about, but also to do it in what I consider my home turf. I grew up in Kajiado. I went to school in Ongata Rongai. So Kajiado is truly, truly home for me. I grew up here. I was born a Luo, but I speak Kikuyu. I speak a little bit of Maasai. So I feel even more Kajiado than I feel Kenyan, to be honest. So to be here and talk about this important issue to me in this platform in front of people from my own county, I'm very, very grateful. So without wasting too much time, only have about 45 minutes, I'll just start with this very, very provocative title, which is Stillness and Why Mastering Your Mental Health is the most important skill of the 21st century. I think that's what I feel like. I feel like we are continuing to enter a century where we cannot predict the future more than 2 or 3 years ahead. And we don't know how the job market will look like in 2 or 3 years. We don't know how the environment will look like in 2 or 3 years. We don't know what epidemics might hit us again. That isn't just Corona. We're living in times and unprecedented times in human history that no one really knows what's going to happen. So it is so important to know yourself so well before you even try to figure out what's going to happen. So I'm going to attempt to break down mental health and why it's important, but also how to find this thing we're calling stillness. And I think the place to start is by defining suffering, because when we talk about stress, I think really what we're really talking about is suffering. Anytime you say I'm stressed, you're really suffering. But how do we describe suffering? You know, there's a good story I like to tell called the Wandering Bachelor, of a man who was looking for a wife, and he was trying his best. He was trying his best to find a perfect wife, a wife he can love, take care of, but also who is intelligent, a wife who is ticking all the boxes that usually people try to tick when looking for a date. And he looks for this wife. The first person he finds the first date he finds is very good at cooking, but not as intelligent as he wants her to be. The second wife he finds was very intelligent, but doesn't cook so well. And by the time he found the third and most perfect wife, this wife did not like him because he was not perfect. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is somebody who you would agree with me is suffering, because he is asking of the world what it cannot give him. I think this is the first description I can give of suffering, is whenever you are asking the world to give you something it cannot give you, then you're suffering. Even when it comes to things as difficult as death, when we lose a loved one and we cry our eyes out and we bawl out these rivers of tears, even then, when we cry and you want that person back, the world can't give you that person, and so you're suffering. But another way I'd like to describe suffering is wanting to be somewhere other than where you are. So we all know how much we love Friday. And I always say, if it is Monday and you are already thinking about Friday, then you are suffering on Monday. You want to be there on Friday, but you're on, it's, you find yourself, if you want Friday to be here now, then you're suffering right now. A third way I could describe suffering is, and I think the most important one, is suffering is the inability to be at peace with the present moment. I think that this encompasses all types of suffering, all types of stress. But one thing in common with all types of stress is that you are so uncomfortable with how you feel and where you are in the present moment. So if you can think of anything that makes you uncomfortable in that moment, then that thing is making you suffer. And so really in this talk, we're going to look at two things, mindfulness and also what meditation is. In this first part, I really want us to look at mindfulness. It's become a buzzword in recent times. There's so many descriptions for what mindfulness is. But I'd say, really, until you have lived the journey, it's very difficult to explain what it is. And I'm going to try and explain it in as quick a time as possible. So there is a great Israeli professor called Daniel Kahneman. He wrote this book called Thinking Fast and Slow. In this book, I think it came out in 2015, 2016. In this book, Daniel Kahneman tries to teach how the brain is structured, particularly how the functions of the brain come together to create this existence that we call life. So in this book, he talks about the brain working in two major systems. If you can imagine your brain, a brain will have different organs. And out of all these many organs it has, 95% of them, Daniel Kahneman puts them in a category called System 1. This is the system of intuition, instinct. This is the things you do without really thinking. For example, even something as biological as digesting your food. You don't really think about what you're doing when you're digesting your food. It's something that happens subconsciously. But also there are other things that you do subconsciously, even something as simple as scratching your face. These are all under System 1, but also things like emotion is in here. How we process, how we feel. These are all things that are within these things that, within this group that Daniel Kahneman described as System 1. It's the system of intuition and instinct. So things like fear, anger, jealousy, regret, all those emotions and feelings come from System 1. Then he also described the functions of System 2. System 2, he said, all the parts of the brain that are responsible or come together to work towards critical thinking or rational thinking. He described them as System 2. So this system, he describes it as it takes effort and it's very slow. This is what we call your logical system. For example, if you're trying to drive around in a roundabout and you're also trying to talk to somebody, that's very difficult because in that moment, your System 1 is trying to talk to that person instinctively, but your System 2 is concentrating on making the turn in the roundabout. So the System 2 is what you use, for example, calculation, mathematics, science, critical thinking, puzzles. This is when your brain is truly conscious of what it's doing, it's aware where it is, and every choice it's making deliberately. But these two systems work together. So to be able to describe mindfulness through these two systems of the brain, I did my best to come up with an analogy. I recently got a dog as a gift from a neighbor, and I'm learning so much about dogs, but also trust. because I got this dog. She was a bit naughty where she came from. She would eat the neighbor's chicken. And the neighbor came to me and said, please just have this dog because I can't control it anymore. It's wild. At least here in your place, it's all fenced nicely, so the dog won't escape anywhere. And I just took the dog in. And so I've been training the dog for a while and building this relationship with it. And really, it reminds me of the relationship in the brain between system 1 and system 2, if the dog is system 1. So we're going to imagine, for the rest of this talk, we're going to imagine a scenario where, an analogy in which your brain is made up of these two people, the dog and the dog walker. The dog is the system 1. The dog is the one for emotion, instinct, feelings, anger, joy, fear, things like that. And the human is the one for rational thinking, calculating, mathematics, driving, the tougher tasks in life that need concentration. So the relationship between this dog and the dog walker is very similar to the relationship between system 1 and system 2 in the brain. And to describe mindfulness, really, I'm going to try and describe it over 3 levels. In the first level, we're going to imagine a dog that is unleashed. And in this level, system 1, or the dog, is easily triggered and excitable. If you imagine your brain right now as an organ that works through stimulus and response, that is, something happens to it and it responds, then you can imagine if the system in your brain that is responsible for emotion, happiness, joy, anger, all these instinct, what we call instinct, when you can imagine that if you have a system in your brain that's responsible for these things, and you are in environments that you are not so comfortable, then you get what we call triggered, or you get excitable. If you've ever seen a dog that is out of control, they will hump you on the leg, they will jump around in the house. If you've ever owned a dog for the first time, you probably know what it's like to have a dog that is unleashed. So just like the same way in the brain, if you are at the lower level of mindfulness, if you are really struggling to keep your system 1 in check, then your dog is quite easily triggered and excitable. And system 2 also has almost no control over system 1. So the logical part of your brain, the one that does the calculations and the concentration, and the one that makes what we call executive decisions, that system, the human, the dog walker of your brain, that part has no control when you're someone who's easily excitable. Usually people at this level are really struggling with their mental health. Usually it's people who struggle with depression, anxiety, some of the more common mental health illnesses that we know of, or even just in general, struggling very, very much. You're going through a period in your life where you're struggling really much with your stress, with your life and your schedule, and you find that you get ticked off very quickly. You find that things annoy you very quick. Little things annoy you too quickly. So that's your dog being excited, the system 1 being excited. Another thing is that in this level, executive control is almost always in the hands of system 1, So at this level of mindfulness, it is the dog that's deciding what happens. Just like if you're walking a wild dog and you don't have a leash on it, if it decides to take a turn into the neighbor's compound, you have no choice, you have to follow it in there. And that's the same thing that happens with your brain, system 1 and system 2. If you have not learned how to control your emotions, your anger, your fear, then what happens is whenever you're in an environment that you feel uncomfortable, just like that excited dog, you tend to be triggered so quickly. The second level of, and the other thing, that the last thing I'd say about this level where you feel like your dog is unleashed, is the present moment is unbearable. That the one place you don't want to be is where you are right now. That is what you'd call like your least mindful. You don't want to be there. So you find yourself spacing out a lot. Maybe you're supposed to be concentrating at work or at school, but you're spacing out so much because your mind and let's say your body are not working together. Your body is here, but your mind is so far away. So the present moment is unbearable, and that's why your mind is so far away. The second level I would describe of mindfulness as we go up now these levels is a dog on a leash. Now you've put the dog on a leash. Now it's, yes, it's still very, very excitable. Yes, it's very wild, but you have some control of it. And I find some of the most successful people in the world who perhaps are just successful because they're so good at concentrating on a task, and they're so good at this, they're very disciplined in what they do. Most of them fall under this level or above this level. But these are people who can stick to a task, even if there's some minimum stress, they can get through that. But what is so common about this system, the first thing you want to know is this system, in this level, system 2 has control over system 1, but system 1 is still very, very reactive. You're still walking the dog, you have the dog on a leash, but it could still take a wild turn. The leash could slip out of your hand. The first day I got that dog from my neighbor, by the way, it tore off its leash. I had to buy another leash. I bought a proper chain now. But you see, that can happen when you have a dog that's too excited. So in this level also, system 1 is still triggered, particularly in new environments. So you can be very good at your job. You can be very good at even things like raising children. And you're a very good, maybe single mother who's taking care of 3 kids at the same time. But if a 4th child was to be added to the mix, if a situation was to be added where you're under pressure suddenly, then things start falling apart for you, because now the executive control now starts shifting back to system 1. And that's why we're saying it's still triggered. System 1 can still be triggered in the right environments, particularly new ones. And then executive control here is in the hands of system 2, but system 1 takes over during crisis. That's the thing, is when you are comfortable in your own environment, if you're at this level, you usually can do so well at work. But the moment something changes, like a new boss comes in, or a new employee who makes your work a little bit harder, or you're now using a different application or a different machine that you're not used to, suddenly you find yourself going into crisis very, very quickly, because you have a control of your emotions, but only when the environment suits you. And in this situation, we can say that the present moment, remember we talked about suffering being, you're incapable of enjoying the present moment. So at this level, the present moment is bearable, yes, but only until it's not. And then in the next level, I would say, in the next level, now this is what I would call the mindfulness level. At this level, the dog has no leash. Your system 1 and 2 have clearly defined roles. The system 1 and 2 work very much together. First and foremost, system 1 knows when to react. For example, if you lose a loved one, of course you will cry. If you lose your job, of course you will be sad. If you lose a friend, of course you'll be sad. But the thing about being at this level of mindfulness is that you can walk through these emotions moment to moment without your life collapsing. You are more resilient because your system 1 and system 2, they don't fight for control. In fact, system 1 is still triggered when there is a crisis, but it is far more resilient in the face of it. It is not so reactionary. If there is a crisis, everyone, I think we've evolved to be afraid of crisis. So it is going to be a natural instinct to feel fear. But one of the things I usually love about studying soldiers is they talk about fear a lot. And they say, I saw an interview of a soldier, and he said, a soldier from World War II, and he was talking about what it was like fighting in the trenches and fighting the Germans. And he would say, everybody felt fear. Even the best soldiers felt fear. But the difference between the best soldiers and the worst soldiers is the best soldiers can handle fear. They can think through fear, even though their heart is beating so fast. Their mind is still working. Their system 2 is still in control, is still making the right decision. So even in a time of crisis, you're still in control. So at this level also, you can say that system 2, or the dog walker, is proactively avoiding situations that cause unnecessary stress. So for example, a clear way is, you can imagine, I've just used an example of a war veteran, somebody who has come from war, or somebody who has been in war, somebody who has been in war situation or conflicts. In Africa, we have a lot of conflicts. Whether it's a woman or whether it's a victim or a soldier, they usually develop post-traumatic stress. So in this, and once they develop post-traumatic stress, we know that people can be triggered years later when something that happened to you a long time ago can still trigger the same emotions, the same feelings, and even the same physical sensations in your body. This is a good example of it being triggered. But when you have a certain level of mindfulness, you're still able to work through that stress. But even more so, your system too, the dog walker, is able to identify triggers ahead of time. So if there are people who trigger you, there's somebody who talks a certain way, or there is certain places where you know if you go, there's a certain music that triggers certain memories that you don't want to. System 2 is very good at reminding you that there's no need to do this. Also for addicts, this is a good, people who are recovering addicts, they can say that once they've reached a certain level of mindfulness and they feel the urge of drinking, how they can manage those urges is only through their system 2, helping guide them know where they should be and where they can be, and environments they can thrive in and environments they cannot thrive in. For example, if you're a recovering alcoholic, you don't want to be around areas where people are drinking. So system 2 is what is guiding you and telling you there's no need to be there. You know these things will trigger you. So it's actively looking for the trouble and helping you, just like a dog walker and a dog. The dog would try to go somewhere and the dog walker would know this is a dangerous area for the dog to go to. It might have snakes, things like that. So in this level, this mindfulness level, the thing I would say most about the present moment is there is trust between system 1 and 2. It creates this harmony in the present moment. When you're fully mindful of what's going on through your body, in your mind, then you are capable of creating harmony within yourself, even through the most difficult times in your life. So if I could describe mindfulness now, I started by asking, what is mindfulness? This is how I describe it from what we've just learned. Mindfulness is what happens when system 1 and system 2 harmoniously work together in the present moment. This is when your brain knows when to react, when not to react. When your brain knows when to be afraid and not when to be afraid. When your brain knows that it is currently feeling anger, and the best thing to do is to walk out of the room. You are being mindful. That's what we call mindfulness. So to develop this as a skill in life can help you avoid so much stress, if you can only imagine. So that's the first part. That's what mindfulness is. But I really want to talk about how to develop this mindfulness. And the way, and the best way we know of developing mindfulness is through what we call meditation. And this is another buzzword now that mental health has become more and more of a concern, particularly in Kenya. Meditation is, for my money, and I think centuries and centuries of Chinese Eastern philosophies, for their money as well, it is the best way to develop mindfulness. And so to understand meditation, really, there's really 2 main parts to it. There is the practice itself, the physical, the biological practice of meditating. And then there are the attitudes that once you have finished meditating, these are the attitudes you walk into your life with, so you can remember after you've trained your brain to meditate. So let's first look at the practice. And what is meditation? What is it? I feel like there's been so much said about meditation that usually when people are trying to get into meditation, they're so confused. They go to so many different sources to try and learn meditation. And sometimes they'll have so many different explanations of what it is. So I'm going to try and simplify it so it covers any type of description you can, because Really, the way to understand what meditation is to think of guitar strings. If you think of a guitar string, when it is tightly wound and you pluck it, it makes so much noise. It gets so exciting and it makes a lot of noise. But when a guitar string is loose and unwound and it's off the guitar, no matter how much you pluck it or you even hit it, no sound comes out because it is more relaxed. And really, meditation then is teaching the brain how to relax. If you can teach your brain to relax, much like that guitar string, where things happen to you, but you're still so resilient, you're relaxed because things don't get you excited so much. That's first and foremost what meditation is. So anything that teaches your mind how to relax is meditation. It doesn't matter if you're closing your eyes or not. It doesn't matter if you're walking or not. If it is something that is teaching your mind to relax, really, really, that is meditation. But there are deeper levels of meditation. So another thing I'd like to ask is, why do we meditate? Like I've said, if you find yourself reacting so much to things in life, even the smallest that you feel like, really, I shouldn't be reacting to something like that, then you're the perfect person for meditating, because we meditate so we can let go. I find that people struggle a lot because, first and foremost, the reason they went to try and meditate perhaps was the wrong one. When you're going to trying to learn how to meditate and all you want to do is meditate so you can acquire things, more wealth, more success in life, or you have a goal of being able to do something and so you want to meditate. When you make it a competition of, I can meditate better than these people, or something that you can brag about on social media, then you are losing the point of what meditation is. Meditation is there to teach you how to let go of your anxiety, to let go of your anger, to let go of your jealousy, to start each day almost as if it's new. And the last thing I would ask you, probably I get questions about, is how do you meditate then? If meditation is all the things we have said, how do you meditate? And this is very important. Like I've said, as long as you're doing something that teaches your brain to relax, then you're meditating. But I would say this, the best meditations are the ones that give the brain an object of attention. So there are so many types. Probably there are hundreds of types of meditation, but all of them have one thing in common, that if you can teach the brain to follow one object of attention, then you're meditating. What do I mean by object of attention? For example, if you're listening to music, and a piece of music that has a mix and variety of instruments, and you tell yourself, I'm going to just listen keenly to the guitar in this song throughout the 3 minutes. What you're doing is you have an object of attention to which you're telling the brain to concentrate on for a period of time. So you're meditating, and that's what we call sound meditation. But when we're talking about stress management, when we're talking about getting to know yourself better, really the object of attention, the best place to start with an object of attention is your breath. The breath is the most magnificent gift we were given, because it is really life. Without breath, you can die in minutes. So when you give your brain your breath as the object of attention, then you're meditating. So how do you give your brain an object of attention? How do you make your breath the object of your brain's attention? Well, you study it. And in this next part, this would be my personal guide of how to meditate. This is the simplest version of that I can come up with. Like I said, there's so many types of meditation, but this is for beginner level, and you're trying to just understand what this meditation is and how to do it alone and at home. These are the steps I would give you. The first one is you have to find a quiet time and place. Meditation is something that requires you to dedicate time to it. and also a place where you feel you can go undisturbed. And this usually is very difficult, particularly for parents or young children who have so much to do at home, or even for people who are so busy. But let me tell you, you can see results of meditation for as little as 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes a day, you can start seeing results in your life after a while, even as much as a week. So really, you want to tell me you can't find 5 minutes of quiet time and place? I think you can. The second thing is sit down or lie with your back straight. The other thing about meditation, people sometimes are afraid of meditation because they're like, someone once told me, I'm afraid that if I cross my legs sitting down, I'll feel pain. And I'm afraid I can't hold that position for long. The most important thing about your body posture when meditating is either that your back stays straight. The most important thing is that your back is straight. So if you're lying down, you can meditate. If you're sitting on a chair, you can meditate. If you're sitting down on the floor, you can meditate. You can meditate on the couch. As long as you feel your back is well supported, you sit down and meditate. Then the third thing is settle down and close your eyes. So once you've found a quiet place, you've sat down, you've made sure your back is straight, or you're lying down and you make sure your back is straight, you now start settling down. You close your eyes and then you take 3 deep breaths just to tell the mind, to start bringing the mind to attention to the breath. So we're waking up the mind. You remember when I was very young in primary school, we'd start the day with deep breaths because the teacher was trying to first make sure everybody was paying attention before starting the class. And this is the same way before you start meditating. Take 3 deep breaths. You take air through your nose, in through your nose and out through your mouth. Simple 3 breaths. Then we do something we call a body scan. From step 1 to 5, you are just getting ready to meditate. You haven't really started the practice of meditating. And usually step 1 to 5 is still about the first 2 or 3 minutes of your meditation session. It's really just making sure you're comfortable, making sure your brain is aware. And then in this step number 5, you're making sure that your brain is listening to your body. So you start bringing attention. When we say scan your whole body before beginning, we're asking you to listen from your toes right to the crown of your head. You're listening to every body part as much as possible over the next 2 or 3 minutes. You listen to your toes, you listen to your heels, you come up through your shin to your knee and your thighs and your lower abdomen, and then you come up to your chest and your neck and your body and your face. You listen to how tight your face is, your eyes. Sometimes when people are meditating, you see them making such tight fisted faces, and yet really all you need to do is be quiet and listen and drop in. So that's what we call dropping in, is when you're starting meditation, those first 2 or 3 minutes, from step 1 to 5, what we're calling this is just dropping in. Then step 6, you really begin meditation. This is when you begin observing how your breath is moving in your body and out. You're taking in through the nose and it's going out through your mouth. And really, you're being aware of the breath. The key thing, if we were to go back to our idea of system 1 and system 2, is you're breathing in and knowing that you're breathing in. Usually in day-to-day, when you're going about your life, you don't really consciously breathe in. But now you're asking both systems to concentrate on breathing in, both the subconscious and the conscious. You're asking yourself to pay attention to only one thing, and that is your breath. As boring as it is, as difficult as it might be, you're telling your body, your mind, to just focus on how the breath is coming in through your nose, down through your nostrils, down to your throat, and all the way down to your tummy. And you feel how your tummy rises and goes down. So you know and you're aware that you're breathing. So that's step number 6. Then in step number 7, I want to say something. When you try meditating, when you first try meditating, you will find that it is so difficult because every 6-7 seconds, you'll realize, oh, I've stopped concentrating on my breath, and now I'm just thinking about, yesterday's argument with my husband, or I'm thinking about that work that I left unfinished back at work, or you're thinking about something that you're dreading that's going to happen, and all these thoughts are coming into your mind. And this is why I always tell people, this is the sweet part of meditation. This is where you're now teaching your brain to have a new relationship with your thoughts. You're not trying to control them. You're not trying to fight them. You're only observing them. As they come in, you're only saying, I'm going to observe my breath. And if I think of something, I will accept that it has come as a thought, but I will take my attention very gently back to my breath. And by doing that, you're being kind to yourself every time. You're teaching your brain, you're teaching your system one how to be kind, how to be patient, how to be slow, how to just observe things without judging them. Because if you can do that with your thoughts, if you can learn to observe your thoughts without reacting so much to them, then it's so much easier to deal with this quote unquote stress. So remember, step number 7 is the most vital one, I could say, is learning how to return your attention back. When you're starting, it will be very difficult to keep your attention on the breath because it's meant to be hard, especially if you've never done it in your life. It's the first time, almost like you're consciously making your system 1 and system 2 come together and meet. So this is going to be difficult. You're trying to catch that wild dog that doesn't have a leash. Accept that. Don't fight it. Just sit there. If you say you're going to meditate for 5 minutes, sit through the 5 minutes, no matter how difficult it is. Even if you only observed your breath for 10 seconds of that 5 minutes, you've done well for the day. Tomorrow, just try for 6 seconds. And step number 8 is opening your eyes when you're ready to come out for the meditation. So you've finished your meditation. And tomorrow you come back and you do it again. Listen, it gets easier, but only if you do it every day. Meditation is a skill. When you want to exercise your body, if you want to make your body stronger, then you exercise it. If you want to make your mind stronger, then you meditate. And you do it every day, you do it consistently, and you start seeing results slowly by slowly. But what we've just talked about is what we call the attitudes. Those are the practice itself. That's the physical practice of sitting down, breathing in, and being conscious of your breath. That's the practice. Once that practice is done in the morning, let's say you finished it in the morning, now you're going to work. Now you're going into the world. And what meditation can really help you if you have these certain attitudes that were coined by somebody known as Jon Kabat-Zinn. He is a Westerner who learned a lot of Eastern philosophies and came and taught them in a way that Westerners can understand. And he is really the one who coined this idea of attitudes. Of, yes, you're meditating every day, but there's a certain attitude towards life that if you develop them, you find that it goes well with your meditation practice. And these two things work really, really well to reduce the amount of stress you have. So if you can imagine yourself as a lake that is still, that is reflecting, and you touch that lake, you'll see ripples going like the picture I have there behind the word attitudes. That's kind of the aim for what your brain should be like. It should be something that doesn't judge. It's there, it only reflects, but it doesn't react to things and wants to control things. The ripples come in its life, and once the ripple have gone, the water settles back down. That's kind of how you want to be able to deal with life, and these attitudes help you that way. So let's go through them really quickly. The first one is non-judgment. And our brains, science tells us and shows us that our brains are what we call pattern recognizing machines. We are very creative beings because we are so good at recognizing patterns. We needed this when we were evolving, but also even more important, we need this in our daily life. Our ability to be able to recognize patterns is very important for our survival. It's very important for how we learn things. Mathematics and language is an ability to recognize patterns. The problem with this habit of recognizing patterns is also we are very good at saying what is wrong about the world. and not what is right. Sometimes we'll see what is right and not really appreciate it. So beware of this about your mind. To be able to be non-judgment, to have an attitude of non-judgment, first you must know this about your brain. Know that the brain is wired to see the negative a lot of the times, but you can teach it to not judge. And this is part of what meditation helps, like we said. And judging, remember, the thing about judging is this. When you judge a situation, let's say, for example, you're at work and you feel like a co-worker has said something that is offensive to you, but they didn't say it directly to you. So, but you still feel offended, and these situations happen. So you feel offended by something somebody has said, but not directly to you. And the moment you're feeling offended, that's you judging and saying and deciding that whatever they've said, first of all, is probably about me or reflects on me as well. If you say that, then it is not a complete picture of reality, because you could be wrong. You could be wrong just as much as you are right. You could be right that they are talking about you indirectly, but you could also well be wrong. So if you're going to look at a situation, you should look at the possibility that it's bad and the possibility that it's good. This is what we're calling an attitude of non-judgment. So a good rule of thumb for being able to master this attitude of non-judgment is don't notice and judge things, notice and label them. For example, anger is a good emotion I like to teach people about labeling. Labeling emotions is such a key part of mindfulness. The moment you start feeling, you should be able to get to a point where when anger is rising within you, you can catch it before you act on it, before you say something while you're angry, before you do something while you're angry. They say the mind works through stimulus and response. Stimulus is when something happens to it and how it responds, much like that lake I showed there of ripples in a pond. So if something happens to you and you notice that it's happened to you, before you respond, first label it. First label how you feel. I feel angry in this moment. I feel fear in this moment. I recognize that I feel jealousy. For me personally in my life, I've found that 50% of working through an emotion is first labeling it. If you can label it, if you can understand what's going on inside you, you're halfway there, because you know what is happening to you. Therefore, you're much better placed, or your system too is much better placed to make the right decision and walk away if you need to walk away, or say nothing if you need to say nothing. This is what we're calling noticing and labeling. The next attitude is acceptance. This is an attitude that recognizes that first and foremost, you are a continuation of your ancestors. Your DNA has been passed on for generations and generations and generations. And the things you carry were carried by your ancestors. The fear, the tendency for anxiety. There are people who are born with a tendency for anxiety. There are people who are born with a tendency for depression. And when I say tendency, I mean if they're put in a certain environment, then they can develop symptoms of depression. If they're put in a certain environment, they can develop symptoms of anxiety. Or things like guilt. These are all things that manifest because they manifest because of all the stuff you've carried from your ancestors. You have DNA that's written in you that you're supposed to behave a certain way when this certain things happen. For example, with me, my father had a really bad temper. And before I really started this journey of mindfulness and meditation, I caught myself, I realized that I too struggled with a temper issue. I too struggled with anger. So acceptance is really understanding that you're not perfect, number one. And number two, you're not in control all the time, but you're in control in how you can react. So remember that you carry both the strengths and weaknesses of your ancestors. So your tendency to react to things, if it is natural for you to be somebody who's loud, somebody who loses their temper, fine, that is in you right now, but you can control how you react to it. And the most important thing is acceptance opens you up to learning and transforming. Once you've understood who you are, once you understand that the things you feel and go through are not permanent, but also there are things that you've inherited from a different generation. You can start transforming how you react to that, but only because you have accepted. The third attitude is patience. And approaching this attitude, when you're practicing meditation and trying to master this attitude of patience as well, really what you're teaching yourself is how to unlearn old habits. Here, I think a lot about people who struggle with weight. When you're really trying your best, you go to the gym and you put in all the effort, but at 5 p.m. when you're tired and in traffic, na huyo mtu wa kuuza crips kwa barabara kupita hapo kwa mlango yako, you'll grab a crips and you feel so angry at yourself, like, why did I do that? Why did I, the thing here is you're unlearning an old habit of stress eating or eating when you're bored. And it's going to take time because these are things that were wired into your brain for years and years and years, and now you're trying to change them. So as you go through this journey of meditating and mastering these attitudes, know that it will be difficult to unlearn the habits that cause you stress, the habits that cause you pain. But you must be patient with yourself, because it's not about fixing yourself or controlling your fate. Don't look at your life almost like you want to have the perfect book that by the time you die, people read your eulogy and it can even win a Nobel Peace Prize, Nobel Prize for literature. No, look at your life as something you're unable to control the future. You are unable to change the past. But you are able to adapt to whatever comes to you. So don't think of yourself as broken and needing fixing. And also allow for things to unfold in their own time. That is a great aspect about patience, is you understand that, yes, it's good to want things, it's good to want to change, it's good to want to transform, but it happens in its own time. You'll make mistakes, you'll go backwards, you'll find yourself impatient with people around you, but it's okay. Just keep at it. And then the fourth attitude is what we call a beginner's mind. When you're meditating, when you're doing the practice and you're going out into the world, no matter how good you are at your job, no matter how good you are at parenting, no matter how good you are at being an older brother, no matter how good you are at teaching, everything you approach in life, approach it like it's the first time. Approach it like you're a student. Approach things with a mind to say, I might think I know this, but maybe today I might be surprised. Be willing to be surprised, because this is where new ideas form. This is where new ideas form that can help you deal better and cope better with your stress. This is where you find new versions of who you could be. And also it's about understanding this one thing. Yesterday can never be the same as today. When you have a beginner's mind, you approach each day like it's a completely new day. You realize that, yes, whatever happened yesterday happened and I didn't like that it happened, but I have a new chance to set it right today. I like the phrase, attack the day, which I learned from one of my favorite players from Manchester United, Gary Neville. He always talks about attacking the day. You wake up in the morning and have the sense that I wake up and feel like a sportsman. I feel like today I'm going to kill it at my job. I'm going to try my best. And anything that's out there that I could learn, I'm going to make sure I open my mind for learning it, because the worst thing you want to do is assume things. And a beginner's mind is somebody who assumes they know everything. And this is particularly bad in relationships and particularly in family dynamics. Whenever people feel like they're not understood by their family members, it usually comes down to the idea that the family member does not see you as the person you're trying to become. They see you as the mistakes you've always made. And when you don't have a beginner's mind, you end up treating a lot of people in your life with a set mindset. That's why you want to assume nothing, but also question everything. Learn to be curious about things, situations, but also people. When you have this beginner's mind, then it's so much easier to go about life with an open mindset. Then we have the fifth attitude we call trust. Trust is really, for you to rely on something, first you have to try it out. We tend to not trust ourselves here. Here, I think a lot about friends and family who maybe sometimes when we talk, they talk to me about imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is when you've just gotten a new job or a new challenge at work and you feel like you're not good enough for this challenge. You feel like you can't handle this job. That's an imposter inside you telling you can't do that. Trusting, having an attitude of trusting is trusting that you can handle this present moment's discomfort. You can handle whatever it is that has been put ahead of you only if you trust that you are doing the best you can. And this is what trust really is. Throughout your day, as you're going through your day, and things happen that you feel like you could have done better about, ask yourself one question always. Did I do the best I can? If not, tomorrow I'll do better. It will be a new day because every day is not the same, like we said. If you did, then let go. If you did the best you can and it still didn't work out, or you did the best you can and it actually does work out, it doesn't matter. Both ways, you trust that you've done the best you can and you let things be. Then the last attitude, the second last attitude is non-striving. This is an idea that of not wanting. It's in our nature to want things, to want to grow, to be richer, to be happier, to just want material things, to want to be loved, to want validation. These are all things I'm calling cravings or things we strive for. And when you're practicing meditation and trying to master this attitude, the reason why it's good to master this attitude, because the thing about cravings is they will always betray you. Think about it in your life. Every plan you've ever made, how many of them have gone exactly as you planned for them to go? How many of your dreams have all come true in exactly the way you did? And I bet you even the dreams that came true did not come true the way you thought they would. This is because everything you crave, once you get it and you realize that it's not everything, it is not the be all and end all of life. People crave money a lot, and yet we see so many people who are in positions to have money and to actually be happy are not happy because they still want more, because it's never enough for them. But also people think they will be completed once, for example, they have the partner of their dreams. Then you find that partner and it's okay for a year and then it's not okay, and now you want to leave the relationship because it's never quite exactly what you picture it. But when you have an attitude of hoping instead of striving. So we're saying hope for the best while expecting the worst. And I say this seriously when I say expecting the worst. What I mean is this, is plan for it. Plan for the worst, but hope for the best. This is really the real attitude of non-striving. Go through life not expecting everything you want to come towards you, but hoping that they do. And in the case that they don't, have a plan for what happens when they don't. And the last one is letting go. I started by saying, why do we meditate? We meditate to let go. Our brains are wired to avoid boredom and stress in particular. If a lot of people who try meditation for the first time, the number one thing that most people will come back and say is, I just couldn't do it. I had too many thoughts in my mind. Because the moment you're bored, you have to deal with your thoughts. Now it's just you and your thoughts. When the moment you have nothing to do. But teaching your mind to be okay with boredom is a form of letting go. And what do we say? What do we mean by letting go? A lot of the thoughts that cripple us, the thoughts that make us stressed, really they are things we're worrying about that happened in the past or that we're fearing will happen in the future. And in that way, when you think about it, the past and the future, they are prisons. But it's a prison with an open door. You can leave anytime, and the way to leave it is by being in that present moment. And another way of living it is you let go by loving and appreciating what is already good in your life. That's how you let go. So as you learn to meditate, as you learn to change your relationship with your thoughts, these attitudes They are really a way of changing your relationship with your thoughts. They are not a strict thing that you have to do. They are not something to compare yourself with or compete with. It's just an attitude. It's just a thing to remind yourself to learn how to let go, how to be non-judging, how to have a beginner's mind. Because the more you do this and the more you do this double team of meditating, the more you find that you find peace in your life. So I started the talk by saying, why is building resiliency a priority? Noah Yuval Harari is a professor of history from a university in Jerusalem, and he is one of the world's most renowned historians. He has been known for saying that human beings are under threat by three main things, that human beings as a species and a race. Nuclear war. Right now we have Ukraine and Russia in conflict. Recently we had Vladimir Putin saying Russia has more nuclear weapons than NATO put together. That is ridiculous. Can you imagine the state of the world would be if just a little conflict between Russia and Ukraine can affect our lives as Kenyans so much? Can you imagine what happens when a nuclear bomb is dropped in this planet? But the last two are the ones that, for me, as an African and a Kenyan, I worry the most, which is technological disruption and climate change. We are now having the ability through artificial intelligence and biotechnology to create algorithms that know humans better than they know ourselves. So this is why we are finding this addiction to social media and our phones, because the algorithms know us so much better than we know ourselves. But also in the world of biology, we're now able to change genetic dispositions of people. This means we are soon going to be able to create classes of people who are a little bit better genetically than other people. So it's a new type of classism. And the last one is climate change. Desertification is one of the biggest problems in Africa, and it is one of the biggest reasons why we are having a huge wave of immigration out of Africa, because it is becoming unbearable to live. So if this is the world that is possibly ahead of us, learning your mental health, learning how to be still is so important. I want to share a quick story before I finish of a project I did from around August of last year, 2022, to this year, to around April of this year. I got the opportunity of a lifetime through my consultancy to go to RTRC, Rarieda Training Resource Center, where in Siaya, the founder of this resource center he gave me the opportunity to work with young people there. We went there to teach them mindfulness and meditation over a 6-month period. And what we basically did is every day we woke up in the morning at 5 a.m. to meditate with them. We had classes in the evening teaching them things like the attitudes of meditation and more about stress management. And we kept close tabs of first of all, who they were, because these are marginalized youth. These are some of the most marginalized youth in Kenya. So you can imagine the amount of stress they go through on a day-to-day basis. And day to day, we started seeing changes while teaching them meditation. But after about 2 weeks of being there, a month of being there, we discovered the 4 main things that we felt the young people there were struggling with. The first one was unresolved trauma. Most of these young people were coming from families where they've lost both parents or one of the parents. Some are coming from families of physical abuse. Some were coming from emotional, mental abuse. So this is something that we would have to have in mind while teaching them all these things. We want them to be able to navigate their past and also their present. Another thing we found in the young people there is they were struggling with identity and self-worth. These were young people who, like I said, some of them were orphans, some of them were single mothers. Some of them just felt like there's nowhere they belonged. They were adopted or they were just being taken care of by a caregiver. So they had this sense of, I don't know who I am in the world, and also denying where they're from. Then another thing we found with the young people, there's sleep deprivation. And a lot of this was linked to our attachment to devices, or their attachment to devices, the way they attach to their phones, connected to their computers and laptops throughout the day. So sleep deprivation is something they struggled with a lot. And these were some of the, another thing was suppressed anger, particularly with the boys. We saw a lot of young males who didn't know where to take their anger, so it would come out in bursts, and it would come out very unexpectedly. And this is because it was very suppressed anger. So these are things we were trying to work through. And after 2 months, after just 2 months of teaching them the practice of meditation, meditating with them every morning, meditating with them in the evening as well sometimes, but also teaching them things, valuable things like the attitudes of meditation. After doing this for the first 2 months, we started seeing changes. And I'm just going to share one person's story. This was one of our best students there. Her name was Catherine Mutuku. She wrote, we asked them to write, we were always asking them to write and explain how they are feeling about themselves as their changes are happening. And if you see the story on the screen there, this is the story of how she felt before and after 2 months of meditating and being taught by us. In this story, she describes how her life was full of hate and anger. Sorry. She describes how her life was full of hate, anger. She describes how she even took it out on her kids, and how she learned slowly by slowly how not to judge her feelings, and how to allow whatever is happening in her life to happen, and accept whatever feeling and situation she was going through. And we started seeing changes in her very quickly. And then after 6 months, it was like a gigantic leap. Even the way she expressed herself, even the way she labeled the feelings she felt. This second letter, particularly for me, just shows what meditation can do. Now she starts the letter by saying, this is a poem. There's a poem, the autobiography by Portia Nelson. So she's reading poems now to understand herself better. This is somebody from a very marginalized part of Kenya, understanding her own feelings and emotions in a way that 6 months ago she could never have imagined. So I'm just going to leave that up there for a moment in case anyone is reading, before I go to my final slide, and then we'll go to questions. I'll just give this about a minute. I love how she ends by saying, a calm and peaceful mind has given meaning to my life. The key here also is, if you notice in how she chooses her words carefully, she understands that meditation is not going to just take away all the problems in her life magically, but it's that she feels trust in her mind. She trusts in her mind. Her system 1 and system 2 are in harmony. She knows how to work through her emotions. She knows how to label them. She knows the attitudes to go through life with, and she practices meditation consistently to a point when she's even teaching her kids. So that's our story. And that's my talk for today. We left my contact details there, and I think now I can open up the floor for questions. I hope I was in time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ernest, for such an in-depth and insightful talk. When we started, I asked what's exactly stillness, because again, as you remember, I told you my understanding of stillness clearly comes from my religious background of being still.
Yes.
But this has quite opened my eyes to know my system 1 and system 2 have to be in sync. And I love what you have said. At times we suffer. When you talked about a Monday, when I'm thinking of Friday on a Monday, that is suffering. I believe that happens to the best of us. You can't wait for Friday, yet you've just started the Monday. And we just need to then have our systems in harmony or in sync to just then be mindful and to harness the very best of our mental health. So thank you very much for that. Allow me to just look at a few questions that we have received from our listeners. Of course, I'm appreciating each and every one of our viewers, our listeners who have tuned in to our YouTube, to our Facebook Live. Karen Anyango, all the way from Siaya. Thank you very much for joining us. I see you. Ernest, there is a Lavender saying hi to you, and to Julie, our lovely assistant, and appreciating you for these. Tracy Ndela, Nicole, I'm also appreciating you for tuning in. Kindly allow me to pick a question from Mr. Collins Orlando, who is saying awesome presentation, but he is asking, is this meditation associated with Buddhists or atheists? He says, I am a Christian. Can I meditate on my thoughts? Yet I am supposed to believe. So I believe what Collins is asking, as a Christian, would this then be in conflict, or is meditation going to be a conflict to his religion? Because he wonders, is it in any way associated to Buddhism or atheists? Kindly allow me to ask two more questions so that you can pick them together.
Yeah.
I have an anonymous who is asking, how can you meditate when you are mentally you are heavily burdened? At times you are telling us that meditation needs stillness, calmness. You need to go to a calm location. But how can you achieve or get into that quiet of being in sync with your body when you are mentally heavily burdened? And the third question is it possible to meditate when you are within a toxic environment? And the example here is you are working within a toxic job environment, or you are in a marriage that is not working, and the environment that you are in then doesn't allow you to meditate. How would you advise that you handle that?
Yes, I'm very, very glad to answer all three questions, particularly the first one. Usually when I'm especially talking to young people or students, I usually start by saying, meditation is not prayer. And it doesn't belong to any group. It belongs to everyone. It is not co-signed or owned, or it is not spiritual. It is actually a very, very biological process. I like saying this. If you breathe, if you have the ability to breathe, then God has given you a chance to meditate. It is the freest medicine there is, because it has helped so many people, from addicts, alcoholics, people struggling with different mental health. It is just a way of getting to know yourself better. Then once you know yourself better, you can talk to God in a way that you know exactly what you want to ask from God. You know yourself better. It is not a competition with your religion. Yes, Buddhists meditate, but also Christians meditate. In fact, if you just do a quick Google, you will find that so many churches who are starting to actually adopt meditation as a way of helping particularly young people. So please, 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 Collins, don't go home thinking that meditation is for atheists or Buddhists. Meditation is strictly a physical and biological process where you just have one object of attention. Nobody's going to ask you to remove. Hakuna mtu atakwambia utoe sadaka. Hakuna mtu atakwambia you have to pray for something or you have to give. There's nothing like that. And you are not praying to anyone. You're not asking for anything. In fact, you're asking for nothing. You are staying there and just observing your thoughts. You are teaching your mind to relax. Anybody should be able to do that, whether they are Christian, Buddhist, atheist, whatever they are, they should be able to learn and to teach their mind. And then there was the question on, what was the other question?
Question number 2 was, how do you meditate when
Yes,
your mental is heavily burdened?
correct. So you meditate just like everybody does. The key thing about this is this. If you feel you're too mentally burdened to meditate, in fact, you're the right person to meditate. Because the mental burden itself is a result of you not being able to be at peace with your thoughts. So it's more like an education. If you want to think about it in a different way, think about it this way. When you start school, right all the way to nursery, when you start in nursery, nobody is requiring you to have a degree. You know what I'm saying? So when you're starting to meditate, even though you are burdened mentally, even though the first few meditations may be too difficult, you are learning. You're starting in nursery, kubali too that you're starting in nursery. As you move up the levels, there is no such thing as somebody who has too much mental burden to meditate, unless we are now talking about psychiatric patients who are not in control completely of their awareness of where they are and who they are. But other people who, if you are able, if you know you're aware of the system 1 and system 2, believe me, it's a question of learning. It's not a question of being the best at it. And then the last question was,
is it possible to meditate in a toxic environment, such as a toxic job environment or a
yes.
marriage that isn't working?
Yeah, this is a very easy one to answer. There is a book by someone called Frank Vogel, where he talks about, I can't remember the title of the book. In this book, I'll describe what the book talks about. The book talks about prisoners, how prisoners in concentration camps during World War II would use and harness the power of the mind to imagine, to take themselves from where they were physically to a place where their mind would settle, even though they were in the middle of the most horrific period of the 20th century. Just as soon as I get the name of that book, I'll share it. It shows you and it proves that the human mind is, yes, very, very able to meditate in toxic environments. In fact, if you can learn how to do that in that environment, the day you'll be lucky enough to not be in a toxic environment, you will be a super meditator. So the idea that you have a toxic environment should never stop you from meditating. In fact, it is the challenge that is in front of you in your life. And take it as a challenge that you are in a toxic environment and find the time for meditating. Your brain is capable of handling it. And as soon as I get the name of that book, I'll share. I think Man's Search for Meaning. That is the name of the book. Man's Search for Meaning. Franklin, I think it's Frank something. Man's Search for Meaning. It's a book that describes how somebody was able to live through the whole of World War II as a prisoner of war.
Viktor Frankl.
Yes, Viktor Frankl is the name, sorry. Viktor Frankl is the writer of the book. He talks about that. So whoever asked the question, they can check out that book or even just a review on that book and see just how much the human mind can create an environment for itself despite being in a toxic environment.
Okay. Thank you for that, Ernest. And I liked what you said, that at times the 10 seconds that you are able to just listen to yourself and have your brain in sync with the body, it doesn't have to be the complete 5 minutes. If you're able to do 10 minutes today, it's a journey.
Yeah.
And remember that a journey starts with a journey of 1,000 miles will begin with a single step. So yes, as you said, probably it's not something we're able to master in a day. It's something that will probably take time. But thank you for the insights. I do not even know what to say. I've learned so much from the beginner's mindset, just knowing that I do not know everything. I need to keep learning. Some of the things, accepting that I'm not the one at fault. Some things are coming to me probably because I have inherited them. And I work in a field where we handle or deal with people in recovery. You kept referring to people in recovery. And that is one of the lessons we keep having to remind them and learning that addiction at times comes as a genetic issue. And once you understand that, then know that you might not be in control of what you are getting into, but how you react to it or how you handle it moving forward is something that you're in control of. So thank you very much for those insights. Frank Okeyo, thank you for joining in. Frank is saying, forgive me if I mispronounce these, if I do not do justice to it, but Frank is saying, thank you very much, Wood Nyawasare. Insightful. I hope I did justice. Please forgive me, Ernest. Please forgive me, Frank. I am trying. He says insightful. And so to find peace, I'll shut my eyes to old ends and open my mind to new beginnings. Peace, Bonsera. Thank you so much, Frank. Thank you so much. Quinila Akumu had said, letting go is the best way forward. Wash hands, wash hands, wash hands. And I think for me, that is, just my takeaway that what is beyond you, you let go. You let go as much as you can. Karen Anyango had also said, the brain is wired to always think negative. Sometimes you can be wrong, as that is far as you think you're right. Good vibes, salutes. And meditation is teaching your mind how to relax and stay resilient to help us go. And Karen was liking that. Nicole, I saw you had said mindfulness is where the two systems, system 1 and system 2, are in harmony. And I also, one thing I was able to pick, Ernest, is it's basically training your mind is like training a dog.
It is.
Yes. So for me, I believe that's, yes, that is how I will look at it. I am training a dog. So I train my mind similar to how I'd train a dog, because one day you'll actually walk with your dog without the leash. The dog will have learned to follow simple instructions. So thank you for that. Colin says, at least I can somehow differentiate from daydreaming, contemplating, self-hypnosis, and just resting with your eyes closed. Yes, I believe you're talking about the instinct, intuition, and the rational thinking. Thank you, Collins. And finally, Lila Tube is saying, thank you for the insights. And as we conclude, Ernest, if somebody wants to find you, I know you had shared your contacts. The slide unfortunately moved very fast. Yes, I can see your website, an email address. So the website is www.rhxmedia.com. You can reach Ernest on resilience. That is RESILIENCE at rxh.com, or Ernest Okeyo at gmail.com. Ernest, if you'd be kind enough to also just probably share a location. I do not know whether you have a physical office where somebody can find you, and probably just share a number where our viewers could reach you on to just probably engage you, or how can they then get to learn more about meditation? I know you've given us basics, beginners, how we begin, but if you would want to get in depth into mindfulness and meditation, how can we reach you? Physical location, a phone number, Ernest? We'd appreciate.
Yes. I can say my physical location, I guess. I'm easily found in, I'd say, Ongatarongai. That's, like I said, that's my home. But I'm mostly what you call it?
A nomad.
Nomad. I'm a nomad. I'm always going to people. So
Okay.
it's better to just drop me an email
Mhm.
and tell me how you want to talk, and then from there we can take it.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you for that. So the email is ernestokeo@gmail.com, resilience at rhx.com, and you will get to engage with Ernest. And as you've heard, Ernest can actually come to you. You do not have to go to him. Ernest, I cannot thank you enough for doing this. Julia, our lovely assistant, thank you again for making this possible. Thank you very much. We have learned so much. And as we started, we said that we are learning about being still and how we can master our mental health as an important skill in this very fast, very tricky 21st century. And I believe that Ernest has given us a few pointers, a few leads as to how we can begin. And of course, we have shared details of how you can reach Ernest. So thank you, Ernest, for being our speaker this evening. And of course, I know we cannot exhaust the topic. We are hoping that we will probably in the near future host you again. Our dear viewers, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for indulging with us, engaging with us for the past hour. For all those who are able to engage us on our chat box, thank you very much for all the questions that were sent in. We do appreciate. As I have said, you can become a member of the Kajiado We Want CBO by sending us a message using our Facebook page. If you'd like to be a speaker, a guest speaker, we would gladly host you on topics that are in line with the 8 thematic themes that the CBO is aligned or looking forward to do. Remember, we are changing this community, we are changing our community, our county, a day at a time. So I am hoping that we can get more members. As you saw, Karen today was joining us all the way from Siaya County. So we'd gladly engage and partner and network with other people from other counties. So if you want to be a member of the Kajiado We Want, kindly find us on Facebook, send us a message, and somebody will get back to you. If you want to be a guest speaker, kindly also feel free to reach out to us and engage with us. Remember to tune in again next Wednesday at the same time, 8 p.m. East African time. You can always review these recordings much later. We have them on our YouTube handle, on our Facebook page, where you can get a recording of all the talks that we have held for the past 8 months. So thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. I'm wishing all of you a lovely, lovely night and looking forward to engaging with you next Wednesday, same time, same place. Have yourselves a lovely night. And Ernest Okeyo, thank you once again for being our speaker for the day. Benjamin behind the scenes, I'm also sending very many appreciations for making this possible. Asanteni sana, and may the Lord God bless you. Have a lovely night.